24/7. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand sports talk for.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events.
Welcome to Mac and Jack Friday, as we bring you into the weekend, folks, for the weekend of sports way ahead. We do got some news. Of course, we'll talk our NFL. I guess, Jack, I don't want to start off with the NFL today. I want to start off with the MLB. I want to talk about Pete Alonso a little bit, first baseman for the Mets, who it looks like the Mets said, from what I read today in Yahoo and Fox News, they're pivoting away from this guy. Face of the franchise, Jack.
It is really a shame because certain players, and we've discussed this in the past, like in regard to Saquon Barkley, they should be with their teams for one career, that they're legacy players. And Pete Alonso's legacy should be attached to the Mets for a lifetime. Pete Alonso's on track to break Met records. He'd go down as a Met icon. Yet he went to a free agent. It's apparently backfired. There's not the market for him that he thought it would be. The Mets offered him a year ago a 7-year contract. And I can understand Pete Alonso turning down that contract at the time, thinking, well, I can get more money over 7 years than the $22.5 million or so they were offering me. They were offering him $158 million for 7 years. He's maybe thinking, well, I can get $200 million for that time period. And apparently he can't. There's not a big market for him. And now there's a sense of desperation setting in on the Pete Alonso side, saying, well, we'll sign a 3-year deal at $30 million a year, but we have to have opt-outs after the first and second year. And the Mets are saying no. And that 7-year deal is no longer on the table. Just because you make an offer to a player, it doesn't stay there forever. You don't take it, it's off the table. And now the Mets are coming back with a lower amount than they did originally. They want to work something out. Maybe they'd work out a deal with Pete Alonso, 2 years, $50 million. They might even give him 3 years, $75 million, but that's about it. That's as far as they'll go. And Pete Alonso is hemming and hawing, and he expects more from the Mets. He's not entitled to more. He's really not entitled to more, but this gets to be a feeling of entitlement. So Pete Alonso, chances are he's going to go elsewhere. He's not going to have the same legacy. It reminds me of Andy Pettitte. Andy Pettitte could have been the all-time win leader for the New York Yankees. He would have eclipsed Whitey Ford's 236 wins. But he went to the Houston Astros for 3 years. And even though Pettitte eventually won 254 games, he's not the winningest Yankee pitcher of all time. And imagine what that would be for Pettitte's legacy, guys. if he was the winningest Yankee pitcher of all time.
Good morning, Keith. How you doing this morning? Keith,
Hey, guys.
GI Sports. Keith, we're talking about as you heard coming in, Pete Alonso. Now, Pete Alonso is not a great first baseman, right? But he is a good first baseman. He's not bad. He's a good defensive first baseman. He's got some pop in his bat. In the playoffs, he did hit a few home runs. So, I mean, as Jack said, here's a guy that's played with the Mets for all of his career, and now because of whatever happened with that contract negotiation, whether it's his agent, whether it's Cohen, whatever's going behind the scenes there, looks like he's leaving the Mets. And as Jack says, you look at the Derek Jeters and you look at these people that have been around teams for all their careers. This guy really is a Met.
He is, but his agent doesn't care about that stuff, as we well know. People forget, too, the Mets offered him 7 years and $160-ish million just in 2020.
Yeah, the 158.
He said no, 158. He said no. And, sometimes those things come back to bite you. The circumstances just didn't work out. The free agent, the first base free agent market, or the first base market in general, kind of filled up when Walker signed and Goldschmidt went to the Yankees, and a couple other things happened. Now he's limited to pretty much the Mets, and maybe Toronto. I know he showed some interest the last few days, but he's going to sign, as Jack mentioned, he's going to sign probably maybe even a 1 year make good contract. You might see him sign a 1 year contract somewhere, but probably more likely a 2 or 3 year where he's got opt outs every year, just like Carlos Correa and some other guys did in recent years, and they give themselves options. But I think he overplayed his hand. He's not as good a player and as he thinks he is. He gives you some power, but not much else.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't hit for average, that's for sure, but he does drive in runs. He does have a little pop in his bat, and he isn't a bad defensive first baseman, Keith. He's not one of those. Right. I'm not saying he's great for any reason.
Well, in certain cases, guys, players leave as free agents, and I'm not saying it's greediness. I mean, they're entitled to get as much money as they want, but if I'm the team, do I welcome them back? It's like Darryl Strawberry. He was a Met for 8 years. He could have remained a Met, but he wanted to go for more money to the Dodgers elsewhere. And then he could have worked something out with the Mets. And the Mets wind up retiring his number. He only played for the Mets for 8 years. I know he has a big legacy as a Met. I'm aware of that in the 8 years he was there. But he made the choice to leave. In the case of a Reggie Jackson wanted to remain a Yankee. The Yankees wanted to move on from him. So if the Yankees want to put him in Monument Park, which they have, that's fine. But sometimes you wonder, Albert Pujols, the Cardinals offered him a 9-year contract to stay at about $216 million, but he went for the 10th year to the Angels for $240 million. So why are you retiring this guy's number, Pujols, bringing him back as an icon? He left you. He abandoned you. But people want to forget that. I don't forget that. If a player abandons a team and when the team still wants him, why are they welcoming him back with open arms?
That's the landscape we live in today, though. And if people perform, to a high level, obviously like Albert Pujols, I'm not saying this applies to everybody. They're going to forget some of that stuff over the time. I mean, Albert Pujols, and they won some world championships where Albert Pujols was there as well. And you can't just forget that stuff. So especially, again, in the world we live in baseball today, guys just don't stay in one place their whole career. It just doesn't happen. You mentioned Andy Pettitte, as I heard when I was coming in. I think Andy Pettitte would be going to the Hall of Fame if he'd been a Yankee his whole career.
Probably.
Yeah, and in certain cases, I can give someone a pass. Take the case of Ohtani. At some point, the Angels might retire his number, put him in their Hall of Fame. But maybe if you're a team, you understand if you're a losing team and your player can't take it anymore, and he wants to go elsewhere. Maybe not in the case of Ohtani, but Mike Trout, if he wanted to get traded now, and I'm the Angels, I retire Mike Trout's number, I guess, at some point to put him in my Hall of Fame.
I have trouble having it both ways, though. I mean, what you can't say it's good for one and not for another. You know, it starts to. I get it. You know, you want to get out of a bad situation. Pujols wasn't in a bad situation. That was a winning organization, at least at that point, very consistent. Again, it's something that you can have an argument, I think, both ways. But as long as it stays the way that it is, Pete Alonso is going to be, for his own sake, his own career, would be better off staying and being a lifetime Met. He'll be remembered better. And again, I don't think he's a great player. He's not a Hall of Famer. He's not anything. But he could be a Met all-timer if he were to stay there his whole career. But if he starts jumping around from team to team now, who's going to remember that? They're not going to.
Guys, what is wrong with the one-year deals, 1 year after the other? The Mets would give Pete Alonso a 1-year contract at $30 million. Have a good year, you get $30 million the next year, $30 million the year after that. And when all is said and done, you could actually wind up making more money, perhaps at least come close. Well, it all depends what the player wants. And we could point to the case, too, Keith, of Robinson Cano. I'm not saying he necessarily made a mistake. The Yankees offered $175 million for 7 years. The Mariners offered $240 for 10. Play the 7 years, so you can still play, and then you make your money above the 175. You know, and it comes relatively close at the end of the day.
Part of the problem is the players and agents want it both ways. They want the security of the long-term contract and give me that guaranteed money. But then they want to be able to opt out when that contract is obsolete in 2 years or 3 years. They want to be able to get out and say, I'm underpaid. You can't have it both ways. We'd be better 100%. Off with your system, Jack, but that's long gone, right?
Just a quick prediction, guys. Where does Alonso wind up?
Toronto.
That's what Jack said. I'd have to agree with it.
No, I didn't say Toronto. My guess is, believe it or not, guys, one way or another, he comes back to the Mets. Still, despite the news, and if he doesn't, I'm going to say the Washington Nationals. How's that?
Good. Nationals. I think Nationals or Toronto. I don't think he's going back to the Mets now. I think this last round of contracts where it looked like they were getting close and now they've broken down again, I think might spell the end for him coming back.
Bob Uecker, not a great ball player. Jack told me he was an announcer from Milwaukee for years. I didn't even know that because I really didn't pay attention to Brewers growing
50
up.
Some years probably, right?
Yeah, I didn't care about the Milwaukee Brewers. But anyway, I loved his appearances and all the movies and, you know, all the things on Johnny Carson. I mean, he was an ambassador of baseball. No doubt about that, Keith.
Without a doubt, he was Johnny Carson gave him the moniker Mr. Baseball, and he kind of was for a long time. He did a lot of things. He had a successful sitcom. He was in movies, did network broadcasting as well as being with the Brewers for 50 plus years, probably. He was 90 years old. He was doing home games still last year. He's one of the gems and one of the a guy that I miss seeing as much as I used to years ago. In my youth, he was a guy that I enjoyed watching, and he was funny.
Very funny.
Funny. One of the funniest stories, and I'll mangle this, but I remember when he was getting drafted, or not drafted because they didn't have a draft at the time. He was scouted by the Cardinals, and they offered him a $1,500 signing bonus or something. And his father asked him how it went and what they offered, and he said $1,500. And his son, I'd love for you to be a baseball player, but I don't have that kind of money to pay for you to be a major leaguer.
Well, you know, his beer commercial, I must be in the front row when the usher has to move his seat, and then you see him all the way in the upper deck sitting all alone. That was a classic. People love that line. I must be in the front row.
He became a part of pop culture, and you know not everybody, especially a guy with a career. That guy and Joe Garagiola, I guess to a lesser extent maybe, made a lot from nothing of a career. You know, they parlayed that into some pretty good post playing career dollars and celebrity. So a lot of fun. Love Bob Uecker. One of the best Hall of Fame speeches ever. Go back and watch his Hall of Fame induction speech. It's awesome. Probably the best speech I've ever seen. It's funny.
You know, and you're one of the people who in Milwaukee who got the Milwaukee Brewer games, they had a real treasure because all of us across the nation really hardly would hear Bob Uecker do play-by-play, but they had him all the time. And it reminded me about one of the players, what he said about Jimmy Valvano. Everyone heard his famous speech and what it meant to them. And he said, we heard that speech all the time in the locker room. Today it was their privilege, and it was the Brewer fans' privilege to have Bob Uecker on a regular basis.
I had to sit last night and watch him on. I was on YouTube just surfing old Carson clips with Bob Uecker last night. I watched probably every appearance he had on the Tonight Show last night. I had a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, he was quite the ambassador. A couple college things for you. Urban Meyer gets inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. Keith, I mean, great coach. Person, maybe not, but a great college coach, I would say.
Yeah, again, we don't put people in Hall of Fames based on their personality for the most part, right? If we did, then, OJ'd be out and Ty Cobb would be out and many others would be out. But he's a great college coach. You can't take that away from him. He won national championships in multiple places. He won every single place he went, from Bowling Green to Utah. The people forget that he put Utah on the map. Nearly beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl before he ever got the job at Florida, and perennially he was mentioned in the Notre Dame coaching searches every single time that job came open. He was an iconic college football coach and changed the game a bit with that spread offense that he brought with him from different places, and then finally won it at Florida.
Was he a player-friendly coach, or was he cutthroat? What was his perception? Because I don't know. Someone like Tim Tebow is very fond of him. Yeah. And reportedly, Tebow was kind of like a son to him in a way. They had a special relationship. I mean, how did the players feel about him? Nick Saban is a bit cutthroat, and I'm not saying that was wrong. That's what Saban had to do to make Alabama a winner.
Yeah.
But what was the feeling with the players towards Urban Meyer?
If you watch the Netflix special, I think it was called Swamp Kings. I think it was like 4 hours or something like that. It was really good. Most of the players had very good things to say about Urban Meyer, not necessarily because he coddled them and hung around with them. He was tough on them. And Tim Tebow isn't your average college football player, I would say, right? But I think he was tough where he had to be. But I mean, he was a player's coach in the sense that, if you got in trouble off the field, or which there was plenty of down there, he would kind of look the other way or have people that would fix those situations. So I guess if you want to look at it from that perspective, you could call him a player's coach. But he was tough on these kids, and that's one of the reasons that they won. But again, if you want to be a stickler and look at some of the things that went on around the programs, especially Florida, and Ohio State to a certain extent, obviously. When he left there, he didn't leave under great circumstances. Some of those things got swept under the rug until they didn't, and it cost him at Ohio State.
Keith, he had a reputation as a workaholic to the point where it would make him physically ill, where he'd have to get hospitalized. And his own family made him sign a contract when he wanted to get back into coaching, that he takes off this amount of time, that amount of time. And did Urban Meyer ruin his future coaching aspirations with that stint in Jacksonville? Because you get the feeling he wants back in, and he can't get back in as far as a big-time program goes.
I think, what are we, like 3 years past that now, I suppose? I mean, that taints him for sure, but I think he may not get into a power program. I could see him back coaching college football again at the group of five level, maybe even some lesser Power 5 conference team throws, Mississippi State throws stupid money at him. I'm just throwing a name out there. I could see him getting back into the game in the next few years. I think he gets himself out. He gets relaxed because he is a workaholic. He almost killed himself in Florida. He almost missed a SEC championship game because he was hospitalized. And he would work himself to the point of a nervous breakdown, basically. And so I guess that's just built into him, right? So wherever he went would probably be a short-term situation.
I remember the story. It struck me the wrong way. He would talk about how his day in coaching, And he'd wake up very, very early in the morning and spend 15 minutes with his wife. And he'd say, I have to have those 15 minutes. Those 15 minutes are vital for me. They're essential. And I think that's maybe the only 15 minutes he was giving her the whole day. I mean, that's how much he was into coaching. You know, he was so consumed.
He's not the only guy who's act like that, though. A lot of the great coaches were exactly that way, and some weren't. Some found time for their families, found time for golf, found time for a lot of things. But college football, even then, when Urban Meyer was coaching, is a lot different than college football coaching is today. College football coaching is more like the NFL today, where it's 24/7, 365 days a year. College wasn't always like that. That's why Steve Spurrier hated the NFL, because in college he had guys that go out and recruit for him, and he'd maybe close a deal here and there. But in the offseason, he could play golf every day. He couldn't do that in the NFL, and he wanted to, and it wasn't a good fit for him. So, but now,
well, that's why
college
I love
as much like that as the pros, and maybe even worse.
But I love Bud Grant, the old Viking coach. He'd work 9 to 5, and then he would go home, and he was highly successful.
I don't know.
Different world then, right?
I don't know. I never heard that, but maybe it is. So LT would be out. Sorry, Mac. I don't know what you're talking about there, Richard, as far as Lawrence Taylor being out. I don't know. But anyway, listen, so he does get inducted into the Hall of Fame. I agree with Keith. I think he'll be back in college football next few years. Quinn Ewers gives up $8 million to go into the NFL draft, Keith. I mean, that's a lot of money to give up to get in there. I would imagine if you want to – I think everybody's dream is to be an NFL quarterback, and there are a few that might be able to become one of those. I think Quinn Ewers has a chance at becoming a starting quarterback in the NFL.
If he's going to get drafted second round best case. He's not. And first of all, I think it was $6 million, and there was a mystery team. There was never any real offer, and if there was, it was a tampering because he wasn't in the portal at the time. I think if Quinn Ewers had a chance to stay in college for $8 million or $6 million, he would have done it, because he's not making $6 million in the NFL next year, quite frankly. And I think he would have stayed another year. There's a lot of work to be done with him on the pro level. He's got the talent. He's going to get drafted, as I said, late, maybe probably mid-second round, I would guess. He'll have a job in the league for a number of years at least, carrying a clipboard around, if nothing else. Maybe he matures into something more than what he is now. He's injury prone, makes mistakes in big moments, and that's not something NFL teams are excited to get.
Chief, even if he was Arch Manning's backup next year, hypothetically, he has enough of a body of work that the following year he would get drafted maybe in the 4th round. Someone would absolutely step up and take him at that point. And you say the 2nd round, I'm not so sure he wouldn't go late in the 1st by a team trading up. They might get to be a little antsy, one of the teams that needs a quarterback. Yeah. Like, let's say if the Giants like him hypothetically, they're not going to draft him with the 3rd overall pick, but I could see them maybe moving up, early in the 2nd round or something, trading a 3rd or 5th round, just giving some more draft capital to another team to grab Ewers. I could see that scenario.
And any of these guys, especially when it comes to quarterbacks and wide receivers to a certain point, you'll see where they're expected to be drafted, and we all have our opinions, as I do and everybody does, but that doesn't mean a team won't reach, as you said, Jack, because the draft isn't going exactly the way they thought it would go, and they get desperate, and there's a lot of that. You see it every year, especially with quarterbacks. Daniel Jones is a great example of that. So,
who would you draft ahead of who? Ewers and Milroe, the Alabama quarterback?
I take Milroe before I took Ewers.
Huh, interesting.
I think he's got more upside. Because of the way his mobility and things like that, and the way a lot of the game is played today. I'm not saying he'll do better. I'm just saying if I had a choice between the two, that's who I'd take.
Good morning, Sonia. Watching on Roku. Just download that. Just channel Search Roku on your Roku TV or download the free app and get it on your laptop, tablet, or your mobile device. I don't know, Keith. I think every quarterback that's worth his weight in salt wants to play in the NFL. There are quarterbacks, I think, that down deep know they can't. Your new Miami quarterback, Beck, is one of those. I think he deep down knows that he's not going to be a great NFL, or maybe not even be a starting NFL quarterback.
You mean Georgia? Beck?
No, he's with Miami. He's with Miami now.
With Miami. Yeah. So I think there are quarterbacks like Quinn Ewers and like Sanders who could stay back and make a lot of money in NIL, but they want to push on and play professional football.
Well, in a lot of cases, they could stay and make more, depending if they're smart and they know where they're going to get drafted. The same I said about Quinn Ewers. If that $6 or $8 million had actually materialized, he very well may have taken it and still be in college next year, because that's guaranteed money. He's not guaranteed anything as a second or third round draft pick in the NFL. Carson Beck lost more during this last season probably than anybody on the college level as far as potential earnings in the future. He wants to try to get back to that level. I don't know that he will. He can't. Miami doesn't even know what they're getting, quite frankly. They don't. He had surgery recently on that injured arm, and he can't throw until after spring practice. So this is a $4 million crapshoot by the Hurricanes, and Carson Beck's got nothing to lose here. Plus his girlfriend's down there, so he'll have a nice year. He'll have a nice year making $4 million, no matter what happens. As far as the Hurricanes go, they need a quarterback. They'll take a shot.
What is the most the quarterback could milk it out in school and keep making money? How many? I don't understand how many years. Let's say they love the college life and want to extend it as far as they possibly can, even if it means taking ping pong as one of the courses.
Yeah.
What's the most they could realistically make the ballpark, and how many years?
Well, I think the most years now that COVID is really finally getting in the rearview mirror. Some guys extended it further because of COVID, but you can redshirt 2 years now. So I think you could probably milk it for 6 years if you wanted to. Some of these guys like Cam Rising, we don't know what's happened with him in Utah. He could be coming back for his 8th season, but again, COVID factors into that. There was a couple of COVID, and there was something else right after COVID that extended a lot of guys' careers in college. But the money just keeps going up. I mean, the kid in Underwood going to Michigan is getting, I think, $8 million over 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. There's a kid who just transferred to Duke who's getting like $10 million over 3 years. It's just the money's getting bigger and bigger. Right. We said a year ago when Dylan Gabriel went to Oregon, $2 million was the cost of a starting quarterback in the NCAA. Well, it's now at least $4 million because Carson Beck's getting that. Underwood's getting that. So it's only going to keep going up. Prices never come down. So it's going to get expensive. And there's money, though. These big programs all have, boosters and alumni with lots of money in their pockets, especially down south. A lot of rich oil guys down there. There's always going to be money to be spent, and there's going to be more and more. And maybe in a weird way, it helps college football because kids stay longer. Maybe. I don't know.
If they study, if they decide to take their studying seriously, maybe so.
It's a different situation.
Yeah,
they're not getting paid to study.
Well, since they're there, why not pick up a book?
I agree. There are some guys, and by the way, while we're on this topic real quick, I think real student athlete, and there are real student athletes left in college football in the college world of sports, are really getting a bum shaft because we group all these guys as just they're all professionals now and nobody's going to school. And that's not the case. There's still some really good student athletes out there. But there's a lot of mercenaries that are just out there running around looking for money. How do you get your transcripts? When you hit the portal 3 or 4 years in a row, like some of these guys do, how do you even get your transcripts moved fast enough to be able to take classes, for crying out loud? if you've ever had to try to transfer transcripts from one college to another, it's a nightmare sometimes. So makes
and for the amount of money some of them are making, unfortunately, it's not necessarily essential that they finish college. You want to think of your future. But when you've made millions, even if you don't have an education, as long as you manage those millions well, draw interest, invest it well, you're pretty much going to be set down the line.
You are. I'm only pointing out there are still real student athletes out there.
So
blind grade numbers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's get to the NFL real quick and talk about some of the games that are coming up Sunday. Again, we'll talk about this again on a big football show. Good news for Kansas City is Chris Jones and Pacheco are both practicing at full steam right now. So the problem that they had there, they were worried about that. And we'll give you our picks on Sunday. Listen, I'll take the experienced team and experienced quarterback.
Matt, there are 2 games on Saturday, so we're going to give our picks after the game. I mean, I like that. I think.
No. Well, I'll post that on Facebook like I did last week. So,
I got to get my picks in for Saturday, actually. But
yes, you did. So anyway, that's going to be interesting. Buffalo at Baltimore. At Buffalo is supposed to be 14 degrees at game time. I think this game is all about stopping Derrick Henry. If Buffalo can stop Derrick Henry, make Lamar beat him with passing and running a little bit, Buffalo's got a shot, guys. I don't think there's really that much. I don't think this is a hard game plan for Buffalo, right? Stop the big guy.
Yeah, I think they've got more than a shot. I mean, Josh Allen, for all he takes a hit for not, having made it to a Super Bowl with what looked like some really good football teams, he's still a better playoff quarterback than Lamar Jackson showed in his career. He's made it to AFC Championship games. I think he's thrown 21 touchdowns and 4 interceptions where Lamar and completed over 60% of his passes. Lamar's under 60. He's got about 8 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He's not played well in the postseason. And I'm going to take, as you just said, Mac, the more seasoned and the better playoff quarterback in this matchup. I'm going to take Josh Allen all day. He'll find a way to win. I think the game last I saw was around a pick'em, or Baltimore's now favored. Almost now. On the road.
Baltimore.
You kind of wonder the winner of that game. There's a good chance they'll wind up going to Kansas City. And if they have to go to Kansas City, or even if Houston upsets Kansas City, what's going to be left the following week emotionally? How high can they get up for the AFC Championship game? And I know you're supposed to get up with everything on the line. Of course you're supposed to, but you're human. And we've seen it happen before with teams that win a very big emotional game. And then the next week in the big game, they're just flat. You're human. And Baltimore and Buffalo, I mean, they're psyched to the hilt. I feel bad because one of the elite quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, is going to have a very long off season. Why they couldn't get over the top again. I think it'll be harder on Lamar Jackson than Josh Allen, because Josh Allen really played well in those playoff losses to the Chiefs. And I think everyone recognizes that. But Lamar Jackson hasn't been as good as Josh Allen in the playoffs. And if he comes up flat in Buffalo, wow, that's going to hurt a lot of what he did during the year.
Well, even worse than maybe previous years, because while he's had really, really good years, he's been MVPs. He's had one of the greatest seasons a quarterback's ever had this year with 41 and 4 touchdown interceptions. He's been as good as there's very few seasons you could put above this. There's some, but again, if he flames out now, this is even more magnified because of how good he was in the regular season. It's going to be a fun game. I can't wait. This is the game of the week for sure.
I mean, I'm not going to be hard on Lamar this year as I was the years before, and it's a new year. I mean, he's got Derrick. See, there's a whole different thing here, guys. He's got one of the best running backs in the league right by his side this year. He didn't have that in the last couple of years. It's a totally
rushing last year.
But it's still different, Keith. You still got a guy that you have to key on and stop and it's just different. So I mean, they're going to have to key on Derrick Henry, which is going to leave Lamar on play action pass or some RPOs with a better look at some of the receivers. And we've got one of the best tight ends in the league. I'm not saying Baltimore is winning. I'm saying they got a lot better shot than they've had in previous years than this year.
They'll have a better. Well, Derrick Henry will have a better shot of advancing because if they key on him, which they have in the past when he was with the Titans, right? You just had to shut him down, and a lot of teams did. But Ryan Tannehill is the quarterback and not Lamar Jackson, which is a big difference. So maybe this might be his year. We'll see.
I got to correct you, Max. They had a better chance last year because they were the number 1 seed.
At
and
home.
They got to host the AFC Championship game at home against Kansas City. They're not going to be in that spot unless Houston upsets Kansas City. Baltimore's going to have to win at Buffalo and then win at Kansas City.
But still, I mean, but still, Jack, they didn't play Kansas City in the regular season, Baltimore, right? I don't think they did.
They did the first game this year. They lost controversially, Baltimore, when at the opening game when the receiver caught the ball and his foot, they said, was on the line.
Okay.
Baltimore, Kansas City was very lucky. People don't realize the amount of luck Kansas City had to boost their record, like a botched snap, a foot on the line by inches. People don't realize the Chiefs could have easily, instead of having 2 losses, had 5 losses very easily.
Except they didn't. They have 2 losses.
Except they didn't, but there's a lot of luck. Joe Mixon, I want to point out.
Make your own luck. Make your own luck, Jack.
Exactly.
Make your own luck.
Luck is a design.
Well, to a point. Listen, if another team botches a snap, it's that they messed up. It's not that you necessarily made them messed up. But I want to say this: Joe Mixon is questionable for the Texans against the Chiefs. No one is really talking about that. If Joe Mixon doesn't play, Houston's going to be in a bad way trying to score points. Because they've got Joe Mixon is a key, along with the Texan defense, to have any chance of upsetting the Chiefs.
Well, listen, Houston's success last week was as much the residue of the Chargers' ineptitude as it was their own playing well as well. So, I mean,
agree with that. Three interceptions is
4.
Is not.
I love the way you guys say the Chiefs caused everything. It's a result of the Chiefs being so good. But when another team does something, it's someone else's ineptitude.
I said and Max said you make your own luck. Luck is a residue of good design. They find ways to win. That game in Baltimore last year, the playoff game, Kansas City and Baltimore, is exactly why the Chiefs should be the favorite to win the Super Bowl again this year, because they just find ways to win. As bad as Lamar Jackson played that day, they probably shouldn't have won that game, but they kept making, because Mahomes didn't play that great, but he got every big third down he had to get in the second half of that game, and they just kept eating up the clock, staying in position to win that game, and they did, and that's what good teams do. They find ways to win. Doesn't matter how much you win by this time of year. Who cares? The game.
It doesn't matter at any time of the year. It doesn't matter. A win is a win.
It catches up to you.
Well, yeah, it'll catch up to them when they're in Hawaii celebrating the Super Bowl victory. It might catch up to them then. With the investment of Baltimore and Henry, if they lose, does someone lose their job? No.
Nah, nobody's losing their job in Baltimore.
Can I detour to Patriot news very quickly? They're not in the playoffs. Mike Vrabel, is he the answer? Is he a no-nonsense type guy? Is Robert Kraft giving him full control? I mean, what's the deal in New England? Is there excitement in New England about this hire?
There is, and it's funny, as I posted on some group pages last week, there's a little bit of people who are like, 54 and 46. Well, listen, Mike Vrabel will do 2 things. He will change a culture. He'll make people accountable. He's not going to have full control. Wolf is still in control of the front office. But Vrabel's going to have his people. He already brought in a guy from was with the Giants previously and came in. He's going to be in the front office, one of Vrabel's guys from the Titans. You can say what you want about Mike Vrabel's overall record. The Titans were 5-27 the 2 years before he got there. Without a quarterback, he went to the playoffs 3 times and lost an AFC championship game without a quarterback. And things went bad when they took his guys away, and he started having some issues with the front office. Derrick Henry got hurt, still had no quarterback. This guy will change that whole locker room culture. It's going to be a lot different in New England this year. I'm not saying they will turn it around in 1 year. He did turn it around 1 year in Tennessee, by the way.
I have a red flag, though. I have a red flag that no one talks about with Mike Grable. He got exasperated with Malik Willis. When Willis was a rookie with Tennessee, Grable's the coach. Willis wasn't developed. Willis goes to the Packers. He's so much better under, Matt LaFleur. Even though he's the backup quarterback, Willis is showing he could maybe be a competent NFL quarterback. He didn't show that under Grable. Now, does he get exasperated with Drake May or Mac? Mac even feels Joe Milton should maybe be the future quarterback in New England. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's never happening, by the way. Let me see Joe Milton play against somebody besides third stringers, and I'll
that's Mac's guy you're talking about.
I know
Joe
that. I've commented on a couple of the posts that either Mac or Linda. I never know which one it is. It's so I don't want to blame the wrong one.
It's a mystery, and we're going to keep it like that. Listen. Milton has a chance of becoming a very good quarterback.
It won't be in New England, and good luck if you get him.
It won't. I mean, he's got all the. Listen, Keith. He's got all the technique. He's a very good pocket quarterback. He can move and throw the ball. He can run if he has to. He's a big guy. When I watch quarterbacks is accuracy. Not throwing the ball, not throwing interceptions. Milton checks those boxes. Now, I haven't seen him play a lot, right? I mean, supposedly in college, he tore it up. Supposedly in college, he was a great college quarterback from what I read. So I mean, I might be wrong, but that's what I read. He was a very good college quarterback. So, I mean, I'm not going to debate that. We'll see what happens. If the Patriots would be foolish to get rid of him right now.
I'm not saying get rid of him, but again, none of us have ever seen him play against first-string NFL players ever.
Well, that's not his fault, right? I mean, it's not like he doesn't. All right, so
he's not. Anyway. He's not. He would be. He wouldn't have been drafted in the 6th round because there aren't that many Tom Brady's out there. If he was that good, just saying.
Well. Yeah, all right. We'll
see. You mentioned trading a draft pick for him. I'll take that tomorrow. I'll take that right now.
I would in a heartbeat. I would to get a good young quarterback. I would do that in a heartbeat.
You would give your 2nd round draft choice if you were the Giants right now for Joe Milton.
Not this year. No, I want Travis.
Not this year.
I would give him next year's. I would give him our 1st round pick.
I'll take next year's as well.
How's that? I'd give him my 1st round pick. Anyway.
You'll give your 1st round next year.
Yes.
Okay, yes. I think New England jumps at the deal. Number 1 next year, Joe Milton is down the Giant roster, and the Giants are drafting 3rd overall, so the Giants absolutely would not draft a quarterback this year.
Milton to neighbors. Milton to neighbors. Milton to Hunter. My God, we're running the score up already. We got Detroit at Philly. Detroit. I think the only shot Detroit has is going to be supposed to be snowing is to get out fast. They cannot play from behind against
who? That guy.
The Rams. I'm always Stafford.
Rams is Philly. Yeah.
It can snow in Detroit all they want. It's not going to matter.
Stafford gets me screwed up. The Rams have got to get out fast to me. They don't want to deal with Saquon Barkley running with the ball. Get out fast. Make that that offensive coordinator that used to be with the Dallas Cowboys more start getting crazy and throwing the ball all over the place. I think Detroit can do that, and I think this could be an upset, guys. But, of course, we'll pick on Sunday. But I'm just saying, this, to me, I think this is one of the games that could be not what everybody thinks.
Could get ugly, too. Again, West Coast team coming east into bad weather. Stafford, I like Stafford. He does seem to pick it up, at least since he's been with the Rams in the playoffs, obviously, because he got to won a Super Bowl. But I don't know that he's ever won a playoff game in, like, bad weather conditions in the East. I don't think. Makes a difference. Playing your dome.
The Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in football, arguably the best. So the pressure that the Rams were able to put on the Vikings on Sam Darnold, they'll have some success with Jalen Hurts, but not nearly the amount they had with Sam Darnold.
I think that's where this game's going to be won, as a lot of games are, right, in the trenches, and it will be interesting. That Rams defense is really good. That front is really good. Versus going to be the the defensive player of the year. He's had a great rookie year. You saw him. Well, he was fortunate to get that touchdown. I guess he just was in the right place at the right time against Minnesota. But it's a good defense. But I think there's a lot of weapons. There's more weapons, healthy weapons, for Hurts to go to, and I think Hurts will take the hit a little better than number 14 in Minnesota, Sam Darnold.
Well, I mean, we shall see. I'm not sure if Rick is making fun of me or not. Detroit or the Rams, I'm not sure.
You know, Sam Darnold's life is all over the news and all the talk shows. I mean, what's the situation? I didn't even run this by Mac. What is Sam Darnold's future? If you're the Vikings, is he your bridge quarterback next year for 1 year? Is another team going to step forward? Darnold's not going to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. We know that. But he might get a 3-year contract from someone, maybe around $100 million for 3 years. That's a possibility. What's the market for Sam Darnold? Do you think there's a particular team that might reach a little for him?
Again, I said Wednesday night there's always one dumb owner, so it's possible. If he got offered $30 million for 3 years, or $30 million over. I'm not sorry, $30 million a year for 3 years. He should probably jump at it because he's been exposed now for who he really is. He had a good year this year. He's in the best system he could possibly be in. He might better he could stay there and he could back up McCarthy, maybe play another year, maybe. But he could back up McCarthy for a long time and make good money doing it. Or he could go take a big 3-year contract for $90 million if somebody were to offer it and be done and out of this league maybe in another 4 years. But I think he comes back to Minnesota on a short deal. That's what I think. Because I don't think there's going to be a great market for Sam Darnold.
I don't either. So you got Washington plus 9.5 at Detroit. I just want to give you some stats and rankings here because everybody thinks that Detroit has that much a better offense than Washington and that their defense are comparable, and they're not. They're not comparable at all. So let's talk about the defense first. Lions are ranked 20th in defense. The Commanders are ranked 13th. So everybody thinking, well, Washington doesn't have that good of a defense. You're wrong. They do have a good defense. They're ranked 20th. They're in the middle of the pack, but they're a little bit better than Detroit's defense. And if you talk about offenses, Detroit's number 2, the Commanders are number 7. It's a lot more closer if you look at the rankings and the stats than people think. Now, I don't know if Washington goes in there and wins this game or not, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think.
Redskins are a good football team. Oh, sorry. Team formerly known as the Redskins are a good football team. Detroit's really good, though. And again, the numbers on the page don't really match up the eye test all the time. Remember, we talk about teams being lucky. The Redskins are probably lucky. Again, they have 11 wins, but 2 of them were gifts as well by the Bears, and there was another one I'm forgetting right now. But it's a good football team. It's a young football team. Detroit's been through these wars before and have learned probably from some of the mistakes they made in that San Francisco game. Hopefully they have. If one thing burns them, it might be the gusto that their head coach likes to show and be a little reckless from time to time, going forward on 4th down in places maybe shouldn't. But I think this will be a close game for a while, and I think Detroit pulls away at the end.
I think if Detroit obliterates them, they win by 4 touchdowns. How's that? I see no contest. Washington's had a great year. No matter what, they have nothing to lose in this game realistically. They've exceeded expectations on the season, and I think it's a complete blowout. I think the Lions are prime. They're so focused on the Super Bowl. I mean, there's such a Super Bowl fever in the city of Detroit. They're raring to go. And the Commanders in their way even have me nearly saying the Redskins. And I think Detroit just rolls over them, just absolutely rolls over them.
I think by by all means, Dan Quinn, and I have to say this joke every time we talk about this game, Dan Quinn should avoid getting up 28-3 in the third quarter, but by whatever means possible. So, because that's one sure way he's going to lose the game is being ahead 28-3.
Well, I brought the Falcons to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's not like he did a bad job. He got beat by a team that was, for some reason, I don't know if I blame him for the offensive game plan by the Falcons in the second half.
Who's the head coach? The head coach gets blamed. Head coach gets blamed.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, listen. I mean, if they ran the ball and ran out the clock, maybe the Falcons win that game. I mean, it was a close game, and Brady and the Pats offense had a hell of a half. They still took them to the Super Bowl. Campbell hasn't taken anybody to the Super Bowl yet. So, I mean,
analytics, Matt, showed that the Falcons. Analytics showed the Falcons had a 99.8% chance of beating the Patriots in that game at the end. And Tom Brady was the greatest quarterback of all time for 1 hour. I mean, he was in an incredible zone that I've never seen any athlete in before to bring the Patriots back. He was unbelievable, then better than any other athlete ever for 1 hour. So put it that way. But all the Falcons had to do in that game, Mac, when they were up 7, if they took a knee, which they weren't going to do, they could have kicked the field goal, gone up by 10, and it was all over. But penalties forced them backwards. That has something to do with coaching.
I'm sorry, by the way. I'm not sorry if I offended anybody with my typical Pats joke, because that's what I do for a living.
Yes. And there are plenty of Patriot jokes that we could talk about, too, but we won't do it this time. I'm going to let Keith go. Keith's on out right after us on Roku. Keith, what do you got for us this Friday?
No interview today. So today's a sound off for the audience. So they'll come in and be able to give their rants about the NFL playoffs, the Notre Dame, Ohio State game, whatever they want to rant about. We'll talk about for an hour or so today.
You hear that, Sonia? If you want to go get some more airtime, you can get on Keith's show and have a 5-minute rant. If you like. So,
and I won't interrupt you once till 5 minutes is up. Then you're cut up.
I don't trust Keith when it comes to that. Yes, no, he was when I went out, he didn't say nothing. So
I didn't say a word. Right.
He didn't. No, not at all. So anyway, Keith, thanks for coming in. Stick with Roku. Keith's on right after this. So
I'll get you my
Keith, picture. Sounds good. And that way I'll be able to get them posted at least by tomorrow. Okay. Yep. Thanks again, Keith. Have a great one, my friend.
See you soon.
All right. Keith Engel, TGI Sports. So Jack, we got some coaching to talk about here. And all this is rumors. I mean, listen, the Jets have 17 people they're interviewing for that coach job. I mean, by the time they get done, it'll be time for the draft, Jack. What's going on with the Jets? I mean, I heard Aaron Glenn was the number one prospect.
Yeah, I changed my tune. Brian Flores was my number one guy, but the more I think of it, I want Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn has a Jet pedigree. He has a Jet background. He doesn't have the baggage that Brian Flores has. He's had a lot of success himself as a defensive coordinator. He hasn't been a head coach. I want to see Aaron Glenn, get his shot. He'd be my selection now. For a while, it was Brian Flores. But the more I think of Brian Flores, his background, the things he did, so on. Does he deserve another chance, Brian Flores? Absolutely. Sure, absolutely. Yes. But I'd rather the new Jet coach, be someone with a little more of a clean slate, perhaps. And Aaron Glenn has a Jet pedigree. Maybe if Aaron Glenn wasn't a former Jet and didn't work for them, coaching, scouting after, I'd still be in Brian Flores' corner. But Aaron Glenn would be my guy. But if Aaron Glenn goes to the New Orleans Saints, hypothetically, as their head coach, then I'd welcome Brian Flores, to have the position.
The Bears are interviewing 15 people. I mean, I think they're going to try and bring an offensive-minded guy for Caleb Williams, work on that offensive line. Their defense was pretty good this year. Right now, a lot of talk about Mike McCarthy going to the Bears, Jack.
They threw out the red carpet treatment.
Yeah.
They flew him in. They haven't flown in other coaches. If everything I'm reading is accurate, it seems like Mike McCarthy is their guy. That's the one who they want. And Mike McCarthy is a Super Bowl winning coach. I don't look at him as being an iconic coach that blows the competition away. But apparently Mike McCarthy adds a lot of stability. Aaron Rodgers just came out, said some great things about him as well. And he did have success with Aaron Rodgers. The key thing, whoever's the head coach, they've got to develop Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams showed a ton of potential last year. The Bears strike me as a team that's on the brink of having a good season next year, being a playoff team. And I could see the Bears in 2-3 seasons, maybe even being a Super Bowl team. I mean, they're on the brink. That is a very appealing job. Of all the head coaches vacancies in the off season, that job to me would be the most appealing when you look at the personnel.
Definitely a lot of talent. Even Brett Favre, when McCarthy, I think, was his quarterback coach or an offensive coach with him, raves about him. The Jags, they have 10 candidates, to go over there. Is the Jags team, is that probably the lowest one on your list? If you were a coach and you had to choose between all these teams, say, Jack, you can come coach for us. Would the Jacksonville Jags be the lowest on your list?
Mac, there's an X factor involved in all this that no one talks about. You and I look at things professionally, but look at it personally. These guys have families. They have to uproot their families. Their families have to move. Isn't Jacksonville a great place to move to? Great weather, great city. No put down to the other cities, but would you rather be in a climate that's very cold where you have 20-degree winters or 70-degree winters? I mean, think of that, so there is that appeal factor of where a coach might want to go to, where he might want to live exactly. Because if you're a coach, you're not going to have a lot of vacation time with your family. You're basically going to be spending all your time in that particular area. And the Jacksonville job was appealing a year or two ago, but now we're not sure what Trevor Lawrence is. We're just not sure what he is or what he can be. And part of that job, too, whoever's the new coach has got to bring out the best in Trevor Lawrence. Doug Peterson didn't do it. That's why, in part, he's no longer the coach there. That and his one-loss record, of course.
Of course. Real quick, the Raiders, Pete Carroll. A lot of talk about Pete Carroll going back to coaching and coaching for the Raiders, Jack.
It might be a good fit, but, when the guy's in the 70s, you're thinking of a long-term coach, even though, Carroll, with his energy level, could do it for years. But what other candidates out there? Something about the Raider job, it's not that appealing. The quarterback situation isn't that appealing. There's a certain disarray over there with the team. They have a couple of foundational players, and Max Crosby, their edge rusher, and Brock Bowers, their tight end. But it just doesn't seem to be the most appealing of jobs, Mac.
Yes, I agree. Real quick, last one, Jack. Cowboys rumors of Deion Sanders still going strong. They did. I think they requested her to have an interview with Robert Salah, Leslie Frazier, offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, who was there with them before and now is the offensive coordinator of the Eagles. Salah has that type of attitude that Jerry Jones could probably get along with, right? Whatever you want to do. And Kellen Moore was there before. I think he knows what's going on there. I wouldn't be surprised if Kellen Moore gets it.
Yeah, just very quickly, Salah would be a good fit for Jerry Jones because Salah would get along with him, okay? He's defensive-minded. I actually think he would be a good fit with Dallas, but I don't know what the Dallas fan base go for.
Yes, I agree. Folks, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with the Sports Memory Show. Then, of course, the big football show on Sunday. Great weekend of sports from here with Mac and Jack and the crew on the big football show. Have a great Friday night. Stay